The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello and welcome to another National Road Safety Partnership Program webinar. Stay alert, there's a life riding on it. My name is Jerome Carslake and I manage the NRSPP and its many activities. I'll just ask our lovely guest to move me along to the next slide, please. Thank you very much. So that's me there. I manage the National Road Safety Partnership Program and its many activities. So to please find out more, visit the NRSPP website and register for our newsletter and you'll be kept up to date. Today's session will be running for 60 minutes with plenty of time for discussion throughout. Our guests are very keen to incorporate our questions as you raise them as we go along, and we've got some time at the end for it as well. We'll be recording today's session and it'll be shared, as always, through the NRSPP website. We'd like to make these as interactive as possible, so please send your questions through by typing them into the question box here. And as they pop up and feed in nicely, I'll tie them in to our guests. So, mentioning them, here they are now. We have two joining us today. Our first is our presenters are Emma Blee and Narita Craik. Welcome to you both.
Hello.
Hello.
Excellent. So you give some background of Emma. Emma is a highly qualified and experienced work health, safety and human resources leader with a strong strategic and operational background. You have quite a diverse area I can see, from Coles, True Energy and Australia Post. And as head of safety and wellbeing governance for Australia Post, Emma has the responsibility for leading the implementation of the safety and wellbeing strategy for the Australia Post Group. Welcome, Emma.
Thanks, Noreen.
And Narita, our other colleague joining us today is Corporate Affairs Leader with more than 20 years experience across a range of industries in both international and domestic markets. She has extensive experience leading key internal and external communication strategies for large organisations with complex stakeholders environments, including Australia Post, Cadbury Schweppes, the Alfred and MTV Europe. Wow. As the head of, as Senior Communications Manager in the Corporate Affairs team at Australia Post, she plays an active role in crisis and reputation management, senior stakeholder advisory, and media liaison and community engagement. So you can see why we have both of them here today. So over to the two of you.
Thanks, Jerome. I'll kick off with a bit of background to our program and then hand over to Nerida to talk about the details of the campaign that we ran. But to give you a bit of a sense of our business and why this particular issue is important to us, we have over 17,000 vehicles on the road on any given day. And in any month, we travel over 17 million kilometres. We have everything from large rigids, the B-doubles, motorcycles, bicycles and electric bicycles, fleet cars, vans and small trucks. We also have a large retail footprint, over 4,000 post offices, so a very large presence in the community. As one of the largest fleets of vehicles in any Australian organisation, we've got a significant presence on our roads, and we feel we've got an opportunity to be a role model in exemplary road safety behaviour. Poor road safety behaviours by our workforce can have a significant impact on our customers and the community. But also, we're significantly impacted by the road safety behaviours present in the community. And we're working to improve community attitudes to driving behaviours, as we know that behaviour is a critical tool for community safety. Through that large visible presence on our roads, we feel that we're uniquely positioned to create a meaningful movement for community road safety at a national, state and local level. And our large retail footprint provides us with another channel to reinforce that messaging with different parts of the community. The road safety campaign that we're going to talk about today consists of advocacy programs and initiatives, and it's informed by evidence and designed to ensure that every Australian has exposure to contemporary thinking about road safety.
So this is really the iconic post, isn't it?
Yeah. I guess the harsh reality is that more than 1,200 Australians lose their lives on our roads in any year, and many, many more receive life-changing injuries. Fatality and injury rate is significantly higher for motorcycle riders and increasing as a percentage of overall road deaths in a year. For us, the reality is that every workday, 3 of our posties were being injured in motor vehicle accidents nationally, very often involving other vehicles. Our postie safety campaign was part of a $30 million investment into our people's safety, focusing on the most critical safety exposures first, which included serious injury and fatality risk, with the immediate attention on road safety.
I was just wondering, Emma, what sort of shifted within Australia Post at the moment that's really sort of brought this to the forefront and you go, now's our time to do a road safety campaign?
Look, I think it's just been a maturing attitude within Post to understand. In the past, we've perhaps just accepted that being on the road is a hazard and that one that we have to live with. And over the last couple of years, we've been thinking about how can we control that exposure ourselves. Now, we can't put road barriers up and we can't change the light signals or get rid of roundabouts or any of those types of things. What we can do is try and influence community behaviour, and that's the control that we're trying to use there.
Fantastic.
So what we did in preparation for this campaign is we really wanted to understand what was concerning our people. So really get down to grassroots, and we surveyed all of our road users in March of last year to understand what are the key issues that are concerning them. And by far and above, driver distraction, and in particular drivers on mobile phones, were the most concern to our people who use a motorcycle or bicycle as part of their day job. Probably not a surprise, I would say. We also looked at what are the most risky hazards by vehicle type, and found that reversing vehicles, unrestrained dogs, traffic congestion and poor road surfaces were also of concern to our road users. And this research formed the basis of the campaign and the messages that we pulled together.
So look, historically, when you think of a postie, everyone's always thought it's the dog that's the nemesis. But looking at this, it's other road users that are sort of popping up as the fear to the postie.
Yeah, look, don't get me wrong, dogs are still a really big problem for us, and something that we also have other campaigns running around. But certainly other road users are an increasing problem. There's a change in the profile of the work that our posties do. So they are carrying more parcels, but they're delivering less letters. So they're actually, where a postie used to spend pretty much all of their time on the footpath, now they're on the footpath, on the road, back and forwards. So they're exposed more to road traffic than they used to be. So in terms of actually pulling our campaign together, what we did was we started with an idea that came out of our Heathwood Delivery Centre in Queensland, which focused on this concept of there's a life riding on it. And then we worked with Boston Latitude, an external research company, to evaluate a series of messages and understand which ones were likely to have the most resonance with the community. There was a lot of debate about how many words we used, how complex the message was. We didn't want to create a distraction in ourselves, for ourselves and for the community in creating these ads. So we needed to make them very quick and easy to recognise without distracting people from the road for too long. We also did before we ran the campaign, we established a bit of a baseline of awareness. So we conducted some pre-campaign surveys in our geographic hotspots. So through our internal data, we knew where our key issues were from a road safety perspective. And we've done some pre-campaign research. Those locations were the primary focus for our outdoor advertising, and Nerida will talk a bit more about how that all worked shortly. But when we finished the campaign, we revisited those hotspots for further research.
So you mentioned the idea sort of came from your workers. Is that how it sort of originated from?
Yeah, absolutely. Our workers sent through a bumper sticker, a draft of a bumper sticker that they wanted to print up and put on the back of their pannier bags on the motorcycle. And they obviously need approval for that. And we said, well, hang on a tick, let's have a look at it and see whether we could do something bigger and use that concept. And there was lots of other taglines thrown around, but in the end, it was the tagline from the workers that we built on. So they started with "There's a life riding on it," and we added "Stay alert," and that's how it ended up. But yeah, it was really great to be able to feed back to the posties at Heathwood that their concept has turned into a national campaign.
How proud they must have been.
Yeah. So I'll hand over to Nerida now to talk a bit more about what we actually did in their campaign and the results that we saw.
Thanks, Emma. Yeah, our people were absolutely thrilled that their idea had come to fruition, and it's a real example of how engaged our people on the front line are, and you'll hear a bit later how they're the ones that are continuing to drive the campaign. But just before we get into that, the actual campaign, we had 3 key objectives. We wanted to engage our workforce, we wanted to leverage our road and in-store assets that Emma touched on at the start of the presentation, and we wanted to educate the community. So we wanted to continue to create awareness about the prevention of safety incidents and accidents and to help spread the word about the campaign with our workforce. We wanted to leverage our on-road and in-store assets to help educate our people and the community. And we wanted to educate the public by highlighting the issues and what people can do to help keep our posties safe, that driver distraction piece, that bit about putting your mobile phone down, and a series of other key messages that I'll share with you.
Do you think in some way that the postie is just a bit of the scenery, the street scenery, and that gets missed by a lot of sort of drivers, do you think?
I'm not sure that they get missed. We've done a lot of work on the specific yellow that they wear, but they are a small vehicle on a road, and you can easily lose them in your blind spot. So, yeah.
It's funny because I was past a postie on my drive here, and it was at a very busy intersection, one of the streets nearby here, and I thought, wow, I could very easily see the postie. They were high vis, but I did think, gosh, there's a lot of exposure. You know, it only takes somebody to be distracted by
a few seconds,
like I just said, the phone or changing kid, whatever it might be, and you know, they are really very vulnerable on the roads. So our campaign approach, we had essentially 2 pillars. We had internal and external comms that we did. With regards to internal, we engaged our people around this important campaign safety message through a wide range of our internal channels, which included the distribution of a bumper sticker to all employees via various communication channels and to our extended workforce. And by our extended workforce, I mean our principal contractors and the people that we have that help us deliver the mail. From the start of September, and I should say, and our licensed post offices, etc. Et
so all up, that's about 90,000 people.
Yeah. So from the start of September last year, the campaign was driven externally through outdoor advertising, social media and publicity in those geographic hotspots that Emma mentioned before. Our outdoor advertising was targeted at key road incident hotspots within those geographic hotspots in Victoria, New South Wales and Queensland, and it was reinforced by what we call an unaddressed mail to 240,000 households. So basically a letterbox drop that we included, you know, in those geographic hotspots delivered by our posties. It was also supported by point of sale in our post offices and digital display screens in our post offices as well. And then from mid-September, the message also started to appear on our corporate fleet. And this was the first time we'd done this. We'd never, ever used our corporate fleet to promote an internal safety message. And so that appeared on...
In fact, we'd never used it to display any message.
No, that's right.
So it's never been used as a marketing tool before.
Yes. So we used 10 of our hard-sided trucks, 75 of our curtain trailers, 200 vans, and then our corporate fleet of cars carried the bumper sticker.
And was that a hard thing to accomplish at all? Or was it just that's part of our campaign? It's a great opportunity because the red, it's so iconic in Australia, seeing the Aussie Post anything driving around the place. Was it hard to get that through?
I think a couple of years ago it would have been, but the culture at Post has shifted so much that everybody understands they've got a role to play in the safety of our people. So we were able to work really well as a partnership between brand, safety, communications and transport
And marketing.
to pull this off. Previously it would have been, oh, don't touch our trucks, they're our brand. But it was a really collaborative effort and everybody was trying to find ways to make it work.
And we actually pulled it together in a remarkably short period of time. So, yep. And then also another first for us was, when you get your letter and there's a what we call a stamp cancelling. It's usually
Postmark.
The postmark. We use that stamping machine to include the message about the campaign, which had great impact. I had a lot of people comment to me about that.
In fact, that was the first time we've used the stamp cancelling for any messaging to the community. Previously, it was just a generic stamp, and we've used it since to talk about dogs. So your current stamp cancel is a dog message.
So another first. That's fantastic.
Yeah. Yep, it was great. And then in addition to that, some of our stakeholder engagement included writing to to state government ministers and state Comcare directors, and our sales teams also engaged directly with various state and territory road safety authorities. And we received offers of support from a number of them. So it was a nice internal and external collaborative effort. So this is just some of the campaign creative. As I mentioned before, we had a series of key messages that we carried along with this. So we had the courier terminal cards were what you would see if you went into what I mean by terminal is in our retail outlets. Writing benchmarks when you're writing, addressing things in the post offices. We had posters. There's the stamp cancelling message we just talked about. And again, that was a great collaborative effort and in fact an idea that came out of the network. So it's terrific to see our people showing initiative and then, the ideas being followed through. External promotion, we had a digital campaign, so social media, and also content on our website. And then, the Stay Alert. Internally, we had the bumper stickers placed in our internal publication Post Journal, and it was, as I said before, placed on our corporate vehicles. And then there's some imagery on our vans and our trucks. Essentially, we had 5 or 6 campaign key messages, including things like every workday 3 posties are injured in motor vehicle accidents nationally, often involving other vehicles. 1 injury or near miss is 1 too many. So we're asking the public to be alert, slow down and remove distractions when driving. And then we sort of linked it to our busiest delivery period is just around the corner because this campaign was run in September and our peak starts in October. So we're just asking people to, in the lead up to Christmas, we're just urging drivers to watch out for other road users, including our posties, slow down, minimise distractions and put away their mobile phones. Distracted drivers are just one of the issues posties encounter when on their rounds, and then that's when we went into our secondary campaign messages of unrestrained dogs, reversing cars and drivers speeding through roundabouts also pose a risk, not just for our people but other road users and pedestrians as well. Then one of our last messages was our work to address these issues will help us create a safe environment for everyone. And then we had a series of actual call to action that we were asking people to do. Put away your mobile phone, slow down when approaching roundabouts, etc., etc. So, yeah.
So I guess it's fantastic seeing all that. And I guess a bit of a share of myself is I collect stamps. So I was just wondering.
Philatelist in there.
So I was wondering, there's that little one as well. Was there any thought of how you could tie that into a road safety message as well?
A stamp?
Yeah.
We certainly did discuss it, but as Nerida said, we pulled this together in just within a couple of months. The stamp cycle is about 18 months, I think. So it's in the mix and the agenda and as a potential, but it's a very lengthy approval process and timeline for that. So we wanted to get something out pretty quickly.
Great. Maybe in the future then.
Maybe.
Watch this space and you'll be the first to make sure you get a first day cover. So I guess in terms of the campaign results, here's just a sort of a smattering of some of the publicity. We had we achieved 352 news items, which we estimated reached over 1.3 million people, and that was through both national, metro and regional media. We proactively placed the majority of these items across television, AM and FM radio, and then metro regional newspapers nationally. And I think key to the success was we used our frontline people as the spokespeople. So if there was ever any opportunity for a television or newspaper photo, we put forward our people, and we were very happy for them to talk to the media. And they were very happy to do so. So it was a very authentic, real campaign that resonated well. And the vast majority of our clips were consistent with our campaign key messaging, with only 4% of the items criticising our move towards alternative vehicles for delivery. So at the time we were rolling out our what we call our electric delivery vehicles, our EVs, which are the three-wheel trikes. They were being tested in Newcastle, so there was a bit of publicity generated around that. And we've been subsequently rolling them out around the country. So there was just a little bit of negative discussion around us switching to alternative delivery modes, but it was minimal.
Is the sound much of a problem with the EVs at all?
Oh, it's the sound.
Yes.
Much less. Yeah.
Is that a positive or a negative, do you think? Because all of a sudden you won't be able to hear because for me, sitting inside the house, one of the things I always knew was the sound of hearing the postie go past when I used to work from home.
Yeah, sure. For us, it's positive for a number of reasons. One is that the postie can hear the environment better, so they can hear a reversing car or the like. And one of the biggest triggers for our issue with dogs is the sound of the motorcycle. So that's considerably removed when they're on the EV.
Actually, it's got a question here from Clint. I'm just going to break it up into a couple. From your research of incidents over time, was there any correlation to time of day and or demographic involvement in the instances? And if so, how did you address them in the campaign?
I can answer the first part. Certainly time of day is an issue for us, particularly in the early afternoon, so that period between kind of 1 and 4 p.m. The posties are generally on their way back from their rounds by that stage, and they're on more kind of major or arterial roads and are interacting with what we call the school traffic. So there's a lot more distractions around the road for other drivers with kids getting in and out of vehicles and parents dealing with kids in the back of cars. Not to say that it's the parents that collide with the posties, but that's our biggest exposure time, I would say, when the posties are on those more major roads and interacting with drivers who have other distractions that they're dealing with. In terms of did we face into that with our campaign? Probably not. We went with a more generic kind of, we didn't focus on any particular time period.
Mm-hmm.
I think also that's a time of the day when our drivers are slightly more fatigued because they've completed their round. So internally, we certainly have ongoing communications and education programs and training to help our people during that time.
And how did the rest of the organisation, I guess those who aren't on the post bikes, how did the rest of the organisation sort of see and view the campaign? If it's just focused on the posties, was that an issue at all or not?
We did actually talk about that because whilst the imagery was of a person on a motorcycle, we put it on a truck. And we weren't sure how the truck drivers would feel about that. But generally the feedback we had was that that everybody felt, all of our operational people felt it was showing a real commitment to safety in general. And we've made a commitment that we will continue to look at ways that we can influence road safety behaviour. We were starting with motorcycles because they were our most exposed drivers. And there wouldn't be anyone in the business that doesn't understand that. So, yeah, the truck drivers were more than happy to have that imagery on their trucks. Yeah.
Really highlights that sharing the responsibility through your workforce. So a great culture to hear.
Yeah, and I think further to that, just looking at the results, so social media, we reached, nearly 400,000 people, which resulted in about 20,000 clicks through to our website. And there was many people commented. There was 1,732 reactions, things like likes, love, ha, etc., and 321 shares, which are all pretty good, substantial figures. And I think with regards to the workforce, in terms of reach, as we mentioned before, we have an extended workforce of about 90,000 people. And it's hard to measure, but just from the feel we get feedback from the front line, we feel like the campaign really resonated with our people. There was many people asking for more resources, and I think one of the things that's been the most pleasing is that many of our frontline facilities have gone on and off their own backs organised to do shopping centre promotions where they're giving out the information, setting up little displays, and really helping to continue to share the message. So, and it certainly was something that our retail network was very happy to be involved with, utilising their channel to spread the word. And it's sometimes there's a lot going on in our retail outlets. There's it's a busy environment with lots of messaging. So got pride of place, and our retail teams were very on board with spruiking the message. So yeah, I think it really resonated well with all our people. So I guess in terms of how the campaign performed with regards to advertising, we did the pre-campaign research, so we had a benchmark. So then comparing back against that, people had no trouble remembering who was being advertised and what we were trying to tell them. And overall, the messaging and the campaign had a healthy impact on our brand metrics. So I guess you could say that indicates that the campaign was a healthy thing to do for our brand. The campaign was run over a 2-month period, so it's a short time frame in terms of changing behaviour. And so I guess here we say that there was no impact on the metrics. Just in terms of the metrics observed post-campaign, Australia Post remains amongst the highest rated with regards to safety, so that was a positive. So when looking at pre- and post-campaign results, there was no significant shifts in the public perception, but we remained at the same sort of level. But in terms of safety behaviour, sorry, I got mixed up. I thought we were talking about this slide before. There were no significant shifts in public safety behaviour metrics when looking at our results, pre- and post-campaign. And so I guess despite most Australians claiming to practice safety around our roads always and without fail, there still appears to be some room for improvement, and particularly with less than 60% of people saying they refrain from using their phones while on the move and doing appropriate head checks, mirror checks, etc. So, it was a short campaign. You'd see by that slide that we didn't necessarily successfully shift behaviour, but I think the campaign started us on the right journey, and if we were to keep going, we hope that you might start to see a shift in that, down the track.
So I guess you're really going to be saying, you're looking at that, it's a toe in the water, where you're going to go next. So you're just coming to understand road, because everyone's an expert at road safety, because when they're out, everyone drives around the place. People get very focused on their own tribe, what they're doing when they're out there. So I guess you're trying to cut through a lot of that to get them sort of aware of what posties are. So where to next, do you think?
So this was the first time we've done anything like this at Australia Post, and what it's given us is a real sense of what's possible and how we can use our assets and leverage our people to engage in this type of conversation. So we've got, I guess, a range of thoughts about what we do, whether we make this an annual campaign. We've now got a sense of which parts of that campaign had the most impact, or was easiest to deploy, and what the effort required is. But we're certainly looking at other ways that we can engage with the community. Nerida, do you want to talk about the ATA partnership?
Yep, so with the Australian Trucking Association, just 2 Fridays ago, we announced a 2-year sponsorship where we will be helping to educate particularly young men between 18 and 25 about the best road safety around trucks, because it tends to be a particularly high level of incidents associated with that. So we announced that partnership a couple of weeks ago.
Yep.
That's what I thought. That's a great example of sort of collaboration. So what's that going to look like?
Oh, we're sponsoring that. That's sponsoring a purpose-built truck that travels around the country and provides education programs around road safety. I guess one of the important things is, though, whilst we are continuing to see motorcycle incidents and serious incidents with our motorcycle riders, we are seeing an improvement in that internally. So we've had a 9% or 28 fewer motorcycle injuries in the 8 months to March of this year compared to the previous year. So we're also seeing a similar reduction in our bicycle fleet injuries. So internally, we're seeing some improvements. So maybe we didn't shift the dial with the community because there's more work to do there, and we're certainly up for that and keen to be involved. But we feel like we're starting to shift the dial with our internal drivers.
And do you think also time of year, is there a high risk period during the year as well? Like, is it summer or is it winter when it's darker? But one thing is, as you said, you guys do stand out.
Look, I think there's no specific time of year that's high risk. There's different risks at different times of the year. So, and in different parts of the country. In the north of the country, being on a motorcycle in a monsoon rain in January is high risk. In Tasmania in winter with black ice on the roads, there's high risk. During our peak periods in the lead up to Christmas, where our mail volumes and our parcel volumes are higher, that's an internal risk that we have to manage. So I think it's just about understanding what are the risks at different times of the year and with different initiatives that are going on, and making sure we've got the appropriate controls in place to keep our people as safe as we can.
I've got a question here from Frank. They're asking, if you had a recommendation for other corporates to follow suit with the road safety campaign, what would they be?
Good question, Frank. Start with your people. Start with understanding what's the biggest concern for your people, and engaging them in coming up with the message. What do they want to tell the community, and work with that, because that way you're not just engaging with the community, you're engaging with your people, and it has a two-way benefit.
Yeah, and I think as well, as I mentioned before, that authenticity of actually using our people or engaging our people to help spread the word, particularly through media opportunities, that I think has great impact.
Great. As we're sort of coming to the end, unless people have some questions they want to throw in, but what I'd like to ask the two of you, what would be your sort of take-home message you'd like to close out the webinar with each?
I think for me, the most pleasing part about this was how the organisation came together around this. It wasn't just a safety program, or it wasn't just a transport program or a postie program. Every part of the organisation pulled together, and I think if you're going to do something like this and it's a significant investment of money and time, then you need to get everybody aligned on the same page for the same purpose.
Yeah, and I guess from my perspective, with my comms and marketing hat on, it was, again, collaboration was key to its success, but also listening to ideas from the front line, and then, there may have been some slight tweaks, but to making them happen, there was a great sense of achievement with that for our frontline people, and I got a lot of enjoyment out of that. And then also the opportunity for us to try using new channels. It was great to work on a campaign that, as we said, we used our fleet to advertise, key public education messages for the first time in our stamp cancelling machine. So, yeah, that was great.
Great, some good milestones. And one last question just come through. What were some of the major barriers you had to overcome?
Oh. Actually, there weren't too many in this one. Because I think we've got people at the right point culturally to find a way to get things done. But I guess we did have to work really closely with our brand team and our marketing team to make sure that the message wasn't going to conflict with the broader messaging for Post. It wasn't a barrier, it was just something that we needed to put some effort into that we perhaps in previous years would have been a barrier.
Yeah, I think we were on the right place in our safety journey. We're really facing into some of our key issues, and motorcycle safety is definitely one of our key focuses in our current safety strategy.
Excellent. Well, thank you both very much for sharing. Thank you, Emma. Thank you, Nerida. And I'd also like to thank everyone, all our listeners, for dialing in and being part of our conversation today. Our next webinar for next month is around safer vehicles and safer roads. We have New South Wales Police. Michael Timms is going to be coming in and joining us. And what I really look forward to this one is actually exploring how does the safer vehicles relate into the home. So beyond just they have safe vehicles for their workforce, but what are the actual workers using? What are the families using? And touching on, they did a survey. So I really look forward to exploring that one. So thank you both very much for coming in today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you everyone again. Till next time.